Here I have a fake Victoria Regina tarot. I didn't know I was buying a fake at the time because I do not know much about the deck. I missed certain cues, certain clues, and only after it shipped I had an inkling that something isn't quite right. But by then I had a couple of other problematic purchases with customs and with things arriving completely shattered that I just didn't have time to pursue this one. And because it was so very cheap, I should have known when something is too good to be true, it probably is. The thing though, because I don't know much about it, I didn't know that the price was very cheap. I mean, this is you basically get what you pay for. Having said that, the deck itself, or should I say, I'm going to put aside the artistry of it because it's pretty mediocre. It's nothing to write home about. It came in a tuck box like this, which is basically a straight copy of the large format. And again, I don't know much about the original, so I suspect this one here is also a straight copy of the handbook that comes with a kit. I believe the original come in a kit, which is why the box is big, because it is the size of the book, and then the deck is in it, if I remember correctly. A long time ago, an eclectic tarot forum when I first started tarot, and about 6 or 7 years ago, I've had the opportunity to trade or purchase one. I can't quite remember whether it was a trade or a purchase, but it was already out of print even then. It was already sought after even then, but what bothers me is the I don't mind so much collage, honestly, but when the collage, and I think I've spoken about this a long time ago, when the collage has the aesthetic of, whether intentionally or not intentionally, when the collage is presented like not a collage, like a piece of an independent standalone illustration, like this one here, for example, it isn't very obvious whether it's a collage or whether those two clocks have been added to him, and I think it's pretty obvious that this has been added to him. But in other cases, it's not as obvious. For example, the suits have been inserted, like this gun here. And because everything is black and white, you can't really tell. And so you could argue that technically that is a much better collage, because everything's black and white, so that it is a collage, but it doesn't look like a collage, which might be why some like them. But that is also the very reason why I don't like them. I like my collage to look blatantly obvious that it's a collage, and which is why I'm slowly having a bit of trouble with some of my Baba Studio decks, for example, because their collage is like this one here, for example. The nature of it pointed to the fact that the original illustration doesn't have the two items that is attached to him there. The saving grace with Baba Studio collage decks, especially their more recent edition, is that their handbook clearly give transparency in terms of what the original looked like and what they've done to it. And so that is why they still work for me so far. Like this one here. This one here, there's several Indonesian, or should I say Javanese, depictions that really make me feel seen and represented. And so like this lady over here, I think is wearing a kabaya and a sarong, a hip wrapper, and a top called kabaya. I could be wrong, but it really soothes my soul when I see my roots represented in the stuff that in the tools, in the things that I read, I see, I consume, I use, I utilize. And so this is one. But it is called Victoria Regina, the rule of the Victorian Empire. And ironically, Indonesia wasn't part of it, although Southeast Asia, a lot of Asia is part of it, like India, Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, for sure, is part of the Commonwealth. Indonesia was part of the Dutch East Indies, which wasn't even ruled by the crown of the Netherlands. It was actually ruled by a trading company, the VOC. And so the treatment of the people of Indonesia, although no colonialist experience can be untraumatic or good as such, but if we're speaking in the relatives, it is often said that people who are ruled under the British Empire is better off because at the very least the British Empire was working under the illusion that they were helping with the betterment of the people that they rule. The VOC, which is a trading company, have no such pretense, or they have no such desire. They were there to make money. They were there for God, glory, and gold, and nothing else. So this is Queen Victoria in her younger years. I remember from some of her old photos. And so, yeah, so that's the other thing. And that's why I hold back years ago when I had an opportunity to acquire one, because the collage doesn't sit well with me, looking too much like original print with inserted objects rather than collage. This is another one here. As soon as I saw this, I thought that is Indonesia. That is Javanese. Do you remember Taro Nusantara? If you remember my flip through of Taro Nusantara, I'll link that at the end of this video, as well as either up here or up there. You'll see what I call wayang. These two characters are wayang here, this one here and this one here. You see the headrest here. Now, because this is a fake, I don't know if in the original you have a little bit more views on the side there. It is a pity that the side is not seen, because the headgear here is very, very ornate. Some of you who may have caught some of my lives from my live streams or live chat from my living room may have seen a buckle like this framed up on my wall. I don't keep my live chat up, my live streams up, so I've taken them down. And these are batiks, which you may see in some of my older videos. Some of them sometimes I use as tablecloth. I don't use them very often because they're very sensitive to the sun. So sometimes I use them to film, and then I fold them and tuck them away to protect them from fading, because a lot of mine are rather old. So you see there, the pattern there, that's batik. And I believe the one in the middle here reminds me more of Balinese headrest, but I could be wrong because I can't see. No, the person's wearing this batik, and that batik is distinctly Javanese. With the parang, there's a motif here called parang, which is a blade. So that motif there, the pattern there, is pattern after a traditional blade. So this is another image that I just thought, wow, somebody, a part of my people, a part of my heritage, a part of my roots. And this is years ago. So if you think about it, 2014, this was already out of print. I think this was from 2008. So, but again, as inaccurate as it may be to include the Republic of Indonesia, or back then the Dutch East Indies, under a deck of cards called Victoria Regina, still it is one of a very few, if not the only one at the time, other than Taro Nusantara, that I've seen my heritage represented. So, but unfortunately, the pro was not outweighed by the cons, which was, I think the price at the time was relatively already high. And the collaging work just bugged me. It still bugs me, actually. But because this was so cheap, and again, that should have been a flag. But, and I didn't realize it's small. Again, on pictures, sometimes, unless it's a given something else next to it for scale, you can't really tell. Now here you can see that the printing is not very high in its resolution, and the scaling is a bit skewed. So here, I don't know if you can tell, but I can feel that it's a bit skewed around the face there especially. And in some instances you see in round things that the scaling is a bit skewed. Now whether that was original to the original deck of cards, the original images or not, I don't know. I've never owned one. I don't know much about it. So here the pen is, I think, represent the wands, and the pistols and the guns represent the swords. And although I understand that swords are weapons and pistols and guns are weapons, and pens are like staffs, like more like a stick, like a staff, like a wand, physically speaking, instinctively my first sense for me personally is that guns are related to firearm, hello, and pens are related to sword, you know. The pens are mightier than the sword. So the fact that the wands are the pens here and the guns are the swords, although I understand that interpretation, actually tripped me up as well. So there is that. There is the low resolution of this one here, which may not necessarily represent the authentic images themselves, but in this particular instance it's fake one. The resolution is skewed and low. The cardstock is extremely mundane, extremely average. It is probably the worst that you should ever tolerate in a cardstock, but it shuffles well. It is sufficient as a working deck. So sorry about the hair there. So yeah, so if you have a chance of getting the original, please don't confuse this fake one with the original. If the price is really cheap, check the description and see if they, first of all, check the size by asking for the precise size, or asking an object to sit next to it for comparison, for scale. Also check if the descriptions say that this is a newly printed one. I missed that description until later. It says it is newly printed, and I knew this has been out of print. So initially I think I may have glanced over it and I thought they've been reprinted or something. I don't know what I was thinking, but scrutinize the description carefully. But you know, for I think it was $10 or $15 or something, yeah, I can't complain, I suppose, other than the fact that ethically, I suppose morally, I would have preferred not to have purchased this, but you know, it is what it is and it's here now. But with regards to the images themselves, putting all those qualities aside, as I said, even if I obtain the real one, I would say the same thing. That is to say that the wands and the swords, as pens and guns or pistols respectively, is not ideal for me. It really tripped me up. I feel that the translation is very much more on the surface physical level rather than in a deeper level, such as, you know, firearm and the pens are mightier than the sword, and therefore if that is the route that was taken, then I don't see how the pens can't be swords and the firearms can't be the suit of fire wands. Potentially the creator, the original creator, may not associate wands with fire and swords with air. So that, I mean, that is possible. So there is that as well. So aside from the quality of the printing, the skewing of the scale, which I'm not sure whether that's original to the original authentic deck or not, I'm not too impressed with that. But aside from that, because this is a fake, you know, I'm going to put that aside. The quote-unquote content imagery wise, I think if you are into collage decks, I'm not sure if this is for you, but it bugs me that this is in between collage but presenting itself like it's not a collage. I don't know how else to put it. Again, it's not obvious that it's a collage. I would like my collage, preferably, personally for me, to be more obvious. and slipping in foreign objects into a piece of illustration, or it feels like, I don't know how to express it, but I you know what I mean. And also the suits, I think, would I recommend this? I think I would recommend this if you can purchase this at a reasonable cost. I wouldn't recommend this if you have to pay a lot of money for it. And just note the two suits, the swords as pistols, and wands or staffs as fountain pens or as pens. The clocks as coins, again, you know, the round nature of the clocks. So the interpretation of the suits are quite surface level, very much on the physical level. It's round, so it's coins. The staffs are long and short and made of, and then held by hand. Guns are weapons, and so like swords. So on that level, I don't like it, but I'm sure this can work for a lot of people. So I'm kind of in two minds about this. I personally would not purchase this again, but I can see why a lot of people have loved it. For me personally, I'm very, very biased because of these two images here, which I wish is more than just two. But having said that, you know, the Dutch East Indies was never part of the Victorian Empire, so there is that disjoint as well historically. But other than that, it is an older deck that I would like to see reprinted, but I would not recommend that you spend a lot of money on it. And I would not recommend that you spend some money on a fake like this, because it is, you know, it's highly unethical to do so. But yeah, I don't know. I'm quite ambivalent about this one. For the moment though, putting all the ethical concerns aside, it is a good working deck, but it is an old-fashioned one. It is a straightforward Rider Waite Smith. It's been around for many, many years, and it shows. So yeah, that's it for me. Bye for now. Bye.